Welcome everyone to the 2022 Workways Annual General Meeting. I'd like to start by introducing our Deputy Chair, Angela Hudson, to do an acknowledgement to country.
Sorry, Russell, can everyone hear me? Because I couldn't hear you. Right, good. Sorry about that. And pay respect to their elders, past and present, for they hold the memories, traditions, culture and hopes of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of Australia. We also acknowledge that our First Nations people have never ceded sovereignty of this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. So my name is Russell Needham. I'm the Chair of the Workways Board, and I extend a very warm welcome to all of our members, our staff, guests and fellow directors to this live streamed AGM for 2022. Please note that the meeting is going to be recorded or is being recorded, and it will be uploaded to our website for future reference. Please also log into our chat facility if you have any questions that we'll deal with a bit later on in the meeting. Thanks very much for that. I'd like to acknowledge and introduce my fellow board members initially. So I'll start with Angela, who you've just heard from, with acknowledgement to country. Angela is the Deputy Chair. There is Thelma Hutchinson, who is the Chair of our Audit Risk Committee. Marlene Elliott, our Governance Chair. John Websdale, Jenny Semple and Jane Mackay. We have a guest today, Colleen Thompson from the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions. A very warm welcome to Colleen. There is one apology. That apology is from Darren Chester MP, local federal member for Gippsland, I believe. Just with those short words of welcome, I'd like to then move straight into the meeting, and we start that with a special presentation by Dr. Joseph Borladan. Joseph is from the Brotherhood of St Lawrence, whom Workways has been involved with as part of the community of practice with transition to work. Dr. Joseph is a Principal Research Fellow at the Research and Policy Centre of Brotherhood of St Lawrence. He leads the Youth Opportunity Team that conducts research applied, social policy and evaluation in the areas of youth unemployment, education, place and homelessness. Joseph is passionate about pursuing systematic change and draws on research and practice. Is grounded in community, and that recasts relationships of power. So a very big welcome, Joseph, and over to you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Russell. We're on Wurundjeri land here in Naarm, so just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'm also here with my colleague Elle McLaughlin, who works in the community programs area. So I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see those slides? What we want to talk about today, what we've been asked to talk about, why young people, why focus on young people experiencing unemployment. What do we do about that? Taking a place-based approach, and the kind of work that we're currently doing to try to shift the dial on youth unemployment. So we know at the moment that unemployment, the general unemployment rate is at a record low at 3.4%. So it hasn't gone the way that many economists were expecting coming out of COVID. But we think it's important to have a look at some of the detail behind the figures. So generally speaking, youth unemployment tends to sit at more than double the rate, and that hasn't really moved compared to the adult population. So youth unemployment is 7.3%, and compared to the general population, the youth participation rate has been dropping slightly over the past 4 months, so down to 71.1%. Unemployment and underemployment for young people has remained a core challenge. It's almost built in at this point into our labour market. So about a third of all unemployed Australians are young people, aged between 15 to 24, and a quarter of young people working part-time are underemployed. If we take a historical view and have a look at what happened the decade after the global financial crisis, so that's 2008 to 2018, the picture's even more bleak. So young people are experiencing, or that generation of young people are experiencing stagnated wages and zero wage growth. So they've never fully recovered as a generation coming out of the last economic downturn. What tends to happen during times of economic downturn is that government, particularly federal government and states, tend to go to the same old solutions, but these solutions haven't been working. So they tend to go to big investment, particularly in vocational education training. Free TAFE, for example, wage subsidies is another go-to solution. But these things aren't translating into outcomes for young people. So when we look at what's happening in vocational education and training, we've got pretty low completion rates. And coming out of that sector, we have poor conversion to jobs that are secure and that enable career mobility. People often talk up the importance of apprenticeships and traineeships, and that's absolutely right. But this is really only serves a limited group of people, of young people. Not many students are taking this up in the vet system, and it's limited to just the traditional trades, which serves largely young men. The other issue that we've still got skill shortages. So we now have a focus on the misalignment between the supply of skills and where the jobs are, so demand. What's happened is that skill shortages have become the new normal. Employers, industry, small to medium employers are telling us that they can't get workers to fill these positions. Again, there's been a historical long-term decline in occupational mobility as well as domestic migration into Australia, which is part of the context to why we have these skill shortages at the moment. The other issue for young people is that while there are jobs there, they're jobs in the services industry, professional industry, so these booming areas, young people aren't in a position to take them up, and there are some stats there just showing that. So what we have as a picture for young people, we've got what we call a broken promise of youth transitions. And so one of the ideas that's just been taken for granted in our society is that if you study hard, if you increase your qualifications, your chances of attaining secure work and having economic security and being able to build a life for yourself, those chances are improved. Actually, what the data shows is that promise, that link, has been broken. So wages have remained stagnant regardless of what level qualification you have for this generation of young people. And again, the conversion into decent work isn't really happening. So a lot of people are studying, but they're not ending up in the same industry that they've studied for. We're also seeing that lack of access to opportunities in growth sectors. Now, when you combine those two things, we have what we call a crisis of hope. We've made these promises to young people. We've told them to believe in these education and training systems, in the employment system, but it's not paying off for them. On the bright side, though, what we have is an opportunity, a once-in-a-generation opportunity a policy change window that has opened up, particularly at the federal level. There's openness to taking a place-based approach to employment, looking at the collaboration between industry, skills, training, government, and we think the community sector as well. This was a feature of the the recent Jobs and Skills Summit. There's a focus on really changing systems at its sort of core first principles, and we're going to see this in the Workforce Australia review. The Full Employment White Paper, so coming out of the Jobs and Skills Summit, there's an emphasis on place and how you need to work in place. There's been, over the past 2 years, a number of national and state-based reviews and reforms in the skills area, particularly looking at qualifications, new industry clusters. So again, there's this forms part of that opportunity window. And there's also a greater focus now on social and community infrastructure, that if you're going to deal with unemployment and employment challenges, you can't just deal with employment services, you can't just deal with education and training, you need to look more broadly, particularly at things like health, well-being, transport, etc. This is finally being acknowledged and treated, I think, a bit more seriously, as we're seeing in the federal wellbeing budget. We also know that the Office of Youth, which Minister Anne Ali heads up, is looking at a wellbeing framework for young people. The question for us then at the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence is, how do we convert these opportunities into lasting change? We've got experience in this area. We have a fair idea of what works. We think it's really important when you're working in place to work with enduring local institutions, people who are committed to that local place. Often the overlay of markets, of transactional services don't serve the community in the long run, right? While having said that, while it's important to work in place to get closer to the problem and how these problems affect communities, we also need change at multiple levels. So the levers for change don't just happen in place, they also happen at state and federal level. What's really important is to integrate that effort. And this is where you need enabling organisations or backbone organisations to do that kind of work. That's the kind of work that we're interested in. So we work across policy and program areas. So skills, employment, social policy, and we also work up and down, connecting local to population level, so local, state and federal policy making. What does this actually look like in practice though? So getting beyond me talking as in my sort of academic language and conceptual language, I want to hand over to my colleague, Elle, who's going to take us through how the National Youth Employment Body enacts this in a place to population approach.
Thanks, Joseph, and thanks everyone. Sorry, I've just crashed your GM. Thank you very much for having us. So I just want to start by saying that this work absolutely does not happen in isolation, and the Brotherhood has had a long partnership now with Workways through the Transition to Work Community of Practice. We work in collaboration with organisations such as Workways across Australia. And the work of the National Youth Employment Body is built on the learnings and expertise of community organisations that work in place with young people, with employers, with skills and training providers. And it's really taken the learnings and evidence that we've collected over the years to look at how we can start to really address some of the structural barriers that both young people and employers are experiencing in local regions. So we hold to a bold agenda, which is on the screen now, and something that occurs to me, you know, in this agenda as well, and in these ambitions, is that this isn't just about policy, but it's also about shifting mindsets. And I'm sure the work that many of you do now, you'll understand this in looking at who young people are, how, what are their ambitions, what are employer needs, and what are the opportunities in the community, and how can we enable young people and others who are unemployed to be put forward and have access to these opportunities. So I'm going to probably skip through these slides because I'm very aware of time, but I want to give an idea of what actually the National Youth Employment Body looks like in place. And we have a governance structure essentially to facilitate this learning. And the key part of this governance structure is a community investment committee. And we have community investment committees now that we support our partner organisations to deliver across Australia. So community embedded organisations such as Workways are our lead partner organisations, and they, through their networks, mobilise champions from across the key sectors that have a touch point in youth employment. So talking employers and industry, champion employers, critical to this work, skills and training, so TAFEs in local regions, young people, of course, other community organisations, government, so local government, state government, federal government. And they draw on data to look at where are the opportunities as well as the real-time expertise of employers and industry in those regions. And together, those committees build and co-design solutions to actually what's going to work for young people and employers in those regions, and start to activate, I guess, and implement coherent pathways that enable young people from where they're at into work and into careers in those regions. Now, these committees demonstrate and pilot that work, and all these learnings are fed up into a national governance structure, which we utilise to influence policy, state and federal, but also industry, corporate, business at a national level as well. The committees come together regularly in a community of practice and policy, which Workways had a representation at last week. We held one. And we build evidence around this and look at how we can sustain these learnings and carry these forwards throughout policy cycles and continually. We also have a National Youth Advisory Board and an employer reference group and a skills and training reference group to really drive through the learnings across these sectors and look at how we can really sustainably take down youth unemployment nationally. And this is, of course, enabled through the Brothers and Lawrence, but really playing a facilitative role in this work. I'm probably just going to finish there. I know we've probably already gone over time. I'm not sure if we had time for any questions, but I'll hand over there. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very much. I think what we might do is hold some questions on that address. And so if people have got questions, please go into our chat and we'll have a look at those a little bit later on. Thank you both very much for a really interesting address. No doubt the future holds a number of challenges for younger people, but it also provides plenty of opportunity, and particularly opportunity for the association that we have with the Brotherhood of St Lawrence. So there's plenty of things out there for us to look at. But thank you very much. If it's all right, we'll hold over some questions until a little bit later on. So I'll keep moving, and we're going to come through to a couple of addresses and some resolutions. Now, just to let you know, because this is a live streamed event, a virtual meeting, the resolutions have already been dealt with by circular resolution by the board. So there are various people who are board members who have moved and seconded each of the resolutions, and they've all been passed. So we will work our way through them, and I'll actually read out who has moved and seconded and what for each resolution. So the first one I'm going to deal with is the confirmation of the minutes for our annual general meeting for the 2021 year, which was held on the 24th of November. The minutes of that meeting have been circulated, and I'm pleased to say that the resolution, the minutes of the 2021 annual general meeting, be accepted as an accurate record of the meeting. That's been moved by John Webstyle, seconded by Marlene Elliott, and was carried through circular resolution. The next on our agenda is the Chair's report. The Chair's report, of course, is published in our annual report, so I'm going to take that as being read, but maybe just a few key points to run through. So it's really been another challenging year for Workways. The COVID-19 pandemic was still hanging around and still influencing the workplace. We've had a series of contract changes. There's a new relationship that we've built with one of our key partners. But I must say that by year end, we've met these challenges head on and have set up a platform to become a stronger and more resilient organisation. This is a great credit to our hard-working team across all facets of Workways, and I congratulate them on behalf of the board. During the year, the board has been particularly busy, and we've worked hand in hand with the EMT, and I'm pleased to say that we have a terrific relationship, open and transparent, and we've used that to help develop some improved reporting processes for financial results, for performance measurements, and for our people strategy. We've adopted and started acting on a new decision-making framework, and all of these things have meant that the board has been able to move on with confidence in making decisions for our future. And there's been a number of fairly significant decisions that have been made. Our two board committees, the Audit Risk Committee and the Governance Committee, they've worked very hard during the year in overseeing financial performance, risk, policy overviews. They've been enhanced by independent members of each committee, and I thank them for their attendance and their assistance that they've helped us with. The two committees have been busy monitoring board and CEO KPIs, the completion and adoption of a risk management framework, oversight of audit functions, completion of both internal and independent external reviews of board performance, and the completion of an internal and external skills matrix that we've been able to use to better inform the board renewal process. Our financial results, which are published in the annual report, show a small surplus for the 2022 year. Those full financial statements, director and audit reports are of course in all the published annual report. The year has seen significant changes in contracts requiring investment in tendering, building capacity, and in some instances having to close down or relocate sites, staff and infrastructure. Our result reflects these changes and investment. The balance sheet remains strong and it gives us a terrific platform to pursue strategies outlined in our strategic plan. The year ahead we can look at with plenty of optimism. With COVID-19 pandemic presumably going or disappearing, mind you, it seems to pop its little ugly head up every now and then, but some of the issues and lockdowns and all that we've had to endure in the last couple of years, hopefully we don't have any more. We've got some new contracts with Workforce Australia and Transition to Work, which Kieran will talk about a little bit more in a moment. Through a range of new initiatives, we've continued to build our capability of the extraordinarily committed team at Workways. We've completed a review and update of our strategic plan for the 2021-24 three-year period in May just gone. Some of the key actions included in that strategic plan include focusing on and bedding down existing initiatives, programs and reforms, while exploring targeted opportunities which will continue to expand the business. We've maintained our focus on Workways people and our people strategy. We're developing a strategic approach to government engagement and a full stakeholder engagement. We continue to redevelop and rebuild the Workways brand, which I must say over the last 5 or 10 years has sort of eroded in some ways, but we're working hard to make sure we redevelop that brand. Our mission and core values remain unchanged as we strive to enable people to participate in the workforce, develop their potential and contribute to society. We've had some changes on our board. Nina Dathalia was a board member for approximately 18 months, and unfortunately Nina had to resign from our board in July after she took up a new employment opportunity in her area of ICT. During the 18 months that Nina was on the board, she made a significant contribution and we do thank her for that. As part of our board renewal process, we have 2 new board members who join us today. We will introduce them a little later in this meeting. And finally, in relation to that, I would like to acknowledge one of our long-standing members, Jane Mackay, who leaves us today. Jane has been on the board for 7 years and has been a dedicated and committed member of the board. Jane has seen many changes and been a very strong advocate to help Workways become a stronger organisation. I, along with the board, thank Jane for her contribution. In closing my report, I would finally like to acknowledge the excellent leadership team that we have, headed by our CEO, Kieran, and the EMT. They've continued to work through many challenges, keeping the board up to date and providing surety. This team has been ably supported by the senior leaders of our working staff. The board acknowledges all of your endeavours and commitment to our mission and core values. We thank you for another superlative effort in the last year. With those few words, that ends my chair's report. We have a resolution, of course. We've got resolutions for everything around here, apparently. But the report from the chair on behalf of the board for the financial year ended 30th of June 2022 be accepted. I'm pleased to say that was moved by Jenny Semple, seconded by myself, and was carried. Thank you very much. So we'll now move to our CEO report from Kieran Kearney. So Kieran, over to you. If you could give your report. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Russell. As we do start, I would like to acknowledge that I'm on Gunai lands. And thank everyone for joining us for our first completely online annual general meeting. It's been really positive to have so many staff join us today. And whilst it's an indication of the post-pandemic times that we're completely online, but it's also an acknowledgement that geography shouldn't determine our access to information and opportunities. So since the implementation of our new ICT system in 2021, our teams have never been more connected. We have managers in Cairns working with staff in Gippsland. We've got our HR business partner in Townsville working daily with staff in Latrobe Valley, New South Wales and the Gold Coast. We have staff celebrating our successes right across the entire footprint. And it's this connectivity that's allowed us to roll out training and development opportunities throughout the business as part of our learning and development strategy, so that when a customer walks into a Workways office, they can be assured of a consistent, customer-focused approach from well-trained consultants. And in that vein, we're currently working on developing the next stage of our ICT strategy with our consultants from Dog and Bone, focusing on building efficiencies and supporting our staff. In the past year, Workways has moved into a new phase of our business development in line with our 21 to 24 strategic plan. The successful expansion of our employment services into the delivery of the federal government's Workforce Australia contracts is just one of the ways in which we're improving the communities in which we work and live. Workways made the decision to tender for these contracts directly as our own entity and not under subcontract to a third party, and we're pleased to receive contracts in South East Queensland and in our heartland, Gippsland. In addition, Workways successfully tendered for the youth-centred transition to work contract in Gippsland, which meant an expansion of the team and services in that area, and also complemented the Workforce Australia rollout. We were disappointed that we didn't have the opportunity to re-establish a contract in Townsville for both the transition to work and Workforce Australia contracts. And we worked with staff in those regions to ensure a smooth transition to new providers or alternative roles within the organisation. Workways continued to deliver the new Jobs Victoria Employment Services program in Gippsland, Northwest and Northeast Melbourne. This highly effective Victorian government-led program targets a broad range of people facing barriers to employment, and whilst disrupted through COVID, it has been successful to date due to its flexibility and focus on partnerships. Our GEM program celebrated its 20th year of making a positive change in the lives of young people in East Gippsland, and our DES program and the teams in the DES program chased down consistent performance improvements like a basset hound, despite the challenges that they faced. Envite continues to play an important role in environmental regeneration efforts across the east coast of Australia, helping to restore habitat and biodiversity, whilst also providing employment and training to people experiencing disadvantage within those communities. We delivered traineeships in Coffs Harbour and East Gippsland with a focus on bushfire recovery, in addition to our successful Skilling Queenslanders for Work skills traineeships in Townsville and on the Gold Coast, which saw 90% of graduates moving directly into employment or further education. We've continued to nurture partnerships with a number of key organisations that have aligned values to support the delivery of our environmental projects. In northern New South Wales, we are working with WWF to re-establish native habitat for endangered koala populations on both public and private land. In East Gippsland, we've developed a partnership with the Australian National University to research the most effective ways to rehabilitate areas disturbed by logging or bushfire, and provide nutritious food sources for tree-dwelling animals such as the endangered greater glider. Like most industries post-COVID, the environmental services industry has been impacted by staff shortages and availability of future skilled workforce. To support future growth and provide opportunities for young people in regional areas, Envite established schools-based traineeships in conservation and ecosystem management, which are currently being delivered on the Gold Coast and East Gippsland. And I'd like to extend my gratitude to the federal and state governments, as well as the East Gippsland Community Foundation, who have financially supported the establishment of these traineeships. Over the past year, we further developed and implemented our Reconciliation Action Plan with the support and direction of our Planning Committee, which includes both Indigenous and non-Indigenous representatives who understand the environment and communities in which we work. Our Reflect Action Plan was officially endorsed by Reconciliation Australia in the past year and will assist us to create a workplace that understands, values and respects the history, culture and contribution of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. In line with federal government requirements to ensure the safety and security of customer data, topical issue at the moment, Workways successfully achieved both an ISO 27001 and Right Fit for Risk accreditation, a reflection on the investment we have in our contemporary ICT solutions. In addition, we maintain critical accreditation in ISO 9001 and HSS standards. We also maintained the National Standards for Disability Service and Quality Assurance Framework through COACT, who are the lead contractor for disability employment services. Late in 2021, we made the difficult decision to divest our Better Futures program to focus more of our resources on our core business of employment and environmental services. We were pleased to note that the contract was picked up by two respected community organisations who are well equipped to provide support to young people transitioning from out-of-home care. It's been a year of change, growth and at times uncertainty for our staff, so it's fitting that we conclude the presentation today with a really heartfelt thank you to all of our staff across the business who continue to give their all for our customers and the environments in which we work. This year we've seen individuals step up to support the implementation of new programs, staff developed and promoted into new roles. We've seen extraordinary stories of the differences our staff have made in the lives of those less fortunate. And we've watched degraded areas expand into thriving ecosystems under the watch of our teams. Our organisation cannot achieve all that it does in our communities without the support of our staff, our board of management, and as well as the executive team with the recent addition of Carly and Sharon, all who have continued to tolerate my humour and show dedication to the work that we do. So thank you all for the important work that you do. I look forward to working alongside with you in the future. Thanks, Russell.
Thank you very much, Kieran. I can only endorse those words. There has been a very significant shift in culture across Workways over the last couple of years, and it is a credit to that leadership team that you referred to and I did refer to as well. Thank you very much. So we have a resolution to receive the report from the Chief Executive Officer. So the resolution is that the report from the Chief Executive Officer for the financial year ending 30th of June 2022 be accepted. That resolution was moved by Marlene Elliott, seconded by Angela Hudson, and carried. So thank you very much, Kieran. We move on now to audited financial reports. So this part of the meeting is to receive from the Board of Management the audited financial report for the year ending 30th of June 2022, together with the Director's report and the independent audit report. The audited financial reports for 2022 are taken as read, members having received the document and in the requisite 21 days before this meeting. Just some key points in the financial reports, and only a few. As I said, everyone hopefully has had the opportunity to go through them anyway. But some key points. We saw a decline in revenue for the financial year. This was mainly due to the loss of the Job Active contract in North Queensland and the divestment of the Better Futures contract in the youth and community space, which Kieran referred to just before. On the upside, Envite's revenue increased significantly. There was a small surplus made for the year, which was quite a good result given all the challenges that I referred to earlier. The focus for the financial year was in investing in our staff and in providing greater local support for our programs at a regional level, and this was a significant investment. The balance sheet remains or has maintained a strong position with good cash reserves and a strong equity balance. So with those few words, I'd like our resolution 4 that the audited financial report for the year ended 30th of June 2022, together with the Director's report and the independent audit report thereon, be accepted. That was moved by Thelma Hutchinson, seconded by Jenny Semple, and carried by all. Thank you very much. Now, we also have, as part of that, I'll come to it a little bit later, but the appointment of auditors, I'll come to that in a resolution in a moment. We do have under item 7 a special resolution. Now, the history behind this is we, as a board, wanted to look at our constitution to make sure it was still fit for purpose, and look at the membership structure of our constitution, and that resulted, after legal advice, etc., that resulted in a special general meeting which we held on the 27th of October 2022, where there were 2 resolutions passed. The resolution we're going to look at in a moment at this meeting is really to ratify those resolutions passed on the 27th of October. So the first of those motions was that the current constitution of the company be revoked in its entirety and replaced with a new constitution, which was attached to the notice of meeting and marked Annex A, noting that the new constitution cancels the membership class of associate membership. At the special general meeting, that was moved by members Fiona Robinson and seconded by Karen Wallace, and was passed. The second part of those motions at that special general meeting was that the current constitution be revoked and the new proposed constitution be endorsed at the upcoming AGM, therefore today. That was moved by Thelma Hutchinson, seconded by John Webstyle, and was passed. So the motion today that we're dealing with is to adopt the proposed changes to the Constitution as resolved at the special general meeting of associate members held on Thursday, the 27th of October, 2022. I'm pleased to say that Jane Mackay moved that motion and was seconded by Angela Hudson and was carried by all. The next resolution that we deal with is the appointment of auditors. So our auditors, RSM, had their first year in auditing our financial reports for the 2022 year, and the board recommends the appointment of RSM to continue the audit for the financial years 2023 and 2024. So our resolution is to approve the appointment of external auditors RSM for the years 2023 and 2024, therefore for the 2 years. They have quoted for us, and it's a little bit vague right at the minute, but they've quoted $43,000 plus CPI. So we've got to make sure we know what CPI is. That quote excludes GST. The resolution was moved by Angela Hudson, seconded by John Webstale, and was carried. Okay, we now come to another very important part of our agenda, and that's the announcement of the appointment of non-executive directors for the ensuing year. So I'd pass over to Angela Hudson to announce who that is. Thank you, Angela.
Yeah, thanks, Russell. Well, I'm very pleased to announce that after an extensive recruitment and selection process, which included an independent member on our panel who was not part of the Workways team, the board has appointed the following people to become non-executive directors for respective terms. 2 of those are reappointments in alphabetical order. The first appointment is Marlene Elliott for a 3-year term. Our new director is Ross Morgan, and he's been appointed for a 3-year term. John Webstale, who's an existing director and has been reappointed for a 3-year term. And Melanie Woodward for a 2-year term. So on behalf of the board, and if I may say the staff and stakeholders of Workways, I congratulate them all and look forward to their contributions to the growth, development and ongoing resilience of Workways during their respective terms. Well done. Look forward to working with you all. Thanks, Russell.
Thank you very much, Angela, and welcome to the board, our 2 new board members, and welcome back our 2 returning board members. We now move on to the question answer session, and I believe Georgie Campbell is hiding somewhere and may have some questions from the chat room. I'm not sure. Over to Georgie.
Thanks, Russell. There are no questions so far. If anyone's got any questions, please add them to the Q&A channel. We'll give it a couple more seconds. No, nothing coming through. Thanks, Russell.
Thank you, Georgie. Maybe we've blinded everyone with science or something. But anyway, thanks very much. Okay, I'm going to now close the meeting before we have a short special presentation. So I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's attended the 2022 Workways AGM. We're going to leave you today with a story that truly demonstrates the difference that employment can make to an individual. Fernando's story is a little different from our other customers. He was struggling with mental health, but had dreams to establish his own business. Fernando and our Gold Coast Disability Employment Services team came together to work towards achieving this goal. We are sure you'll enjoy Fernando's inspiring story. So we'll open that up and I'll also close the meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance.
At the time when I first walked into Workways, I was actually in a kind of a desperate place. I tried to start my own handyman business, which was a dismal failure. I got associated with the wrong people. I got used and abused. I wasn't happy. I was more stressed than ever. I think the pressures of everything just got to me, and I had a manic episode which lasted for about 3 months. I got to be honest, it was a lot of fun, but it was very reckless and very dangerous. Eventually, my next door neighbour across the road, she's lovely, and my daughter got together and they ended up putting me in a hospital. I'm bipolar, ADHD obviously, ODD, oppositional defiance disorder, but I defy anybody to tell me they like being told what to do. Nobody likes being told what to do.
Fernando is just one of many of our customers that we have helped to create their own business or to prepare for a job that is right for them.
When I first got there, I was a complete mess. I didn't know how to run a business or what to do with it. Initially, I was so confused by the whole process. I was confused by the Centrelink process. I was confused by the Workways. I thought everybody was together. I didn't realise it was separate entities as such. And I was always anxious and nervous. That was especially at Centrelink. But Workways was a much smaller office. There was only a couple of girls, and they were very welcoming and they were very patient with me. And they helped me in so many ways. In the way that I now write my invoices and the way that I run my business is entirely based on the advice that I'd gotten from Zoe, Chelsea and Kylie.
It was a long process and it was step by step, but we were with him all the way. And now we can see that, you know, it's slow, but now it's just going gangbusters. And it's really wonderful to see how it's impacted Fernando in such a positive way.
What I've been given is this license to grow in my life, improve who I am. I'm not going to be a millionaire, but it's paying for itself. And for once, in the first time in 3 years, I'm actually putting money back into the business. And I'm investing, I'm buying ladders, planks, and buying everything brand new so I can claim them back on tax.
Disability Employment Services is a really wide umbrella with many different facets to it. Disability could range from a physical disability to an intellectual disability to mental health. It's about working with those barriers, understanding those barriers and how it impacts the customer every day, to then be able to help them structure a pathway to a job.
Kylie is not your average kind of person in any kind of way. When she works at Workways, she's exemplary. She's always positive and always giving me great advice. I would definitely say to a young person, go in, be honest with yourself that you have a problem. Tell them what you need, what you want. Just tell them roughly what you want to do. And these guys will go out of their way, and I mean, they go out of their way to try and help you and cater to whatever you want to do. You need to believe in yourself, which I hadn't believed in myself pretty much ever in my life. I took a manic episode and meeting some decent people that are appreciative of the things that you do for them to bring you up to a place that makes you feel good.